Right. So today's Reddit cheating story is a short one, and you'll probably be annoyed as to why OP chose to settle down with someone like this.
Okay, hit me with it.
So, Susie, who's 35, is married to a guy called Tyrone, who's 39, and the couple met 9 years ago. When they first met, Susie was blown away by him, but she says it's because she was young and naive. Still, at the time, Tyrone was someone she saw as a real man. He was handsome, strong, charismatic, and of course, jam-packed with issues. Throughout her childhood, Susie experienced trauma, and it's something she believes affected the choices she made as she got older. Her dad also left her mom for a younger woman, and ever since then, Susie's always wanted to be the one who'd get chosen, no matter what. Wanting to be the kind of woman who could change a guy. You know, make him see her worth.
That was a mistake.
No doubt, which is why she took to Reddit to share her cheating story. Anyway, when Susie and Tyrone started dating, she found out he was seeing other women and had children, and later, he spent 7 years in jail. When he eventually got out, he said that he wanted to marry Susie, and when he violated his probation, she stood by his side. Now that he was a free man again, Susie let it be known that she was ready to have a baby. And Tyrone? Well, he was all about it. A month later, Susie was pregnant, and from her account, things were going really well between them. Susie felt bad for Tyrone's previous baby mamas because they didn't have the opportunity to experience what she was getting from her relationship with him. However, a few months after their gender reveal, Susie found out that Tyrone was talking to one of his exes, and to make it worse, it was a girl she wasn't very fond of. This girl knew Susie was pregnant and engaged to Tyrone, but she'd still send him nudes and ask him to come back to her. In no uncertain terms, Susie let Tyrone know that he's free to do what he wants, but it'd have to be without her. That said, if he chose to leave her for his ex, she'd still let him see his kid, because she'd never want to separate them. While Susie was ready to let him go, Tyrone said he didn't want to leave, and after that, he started doing right by her. Their son was born a few months after that drama, and Susie couldn't believe how much he'd changed, which obviously worked wonders on her because a few months after having their first child, she was pregnant again. Susie was super excited about having another child with Tyrone, but a month before sharing her story on Reddit, she found out Tyrone had cheated on her with multiple women.
Nobody should be shocked by this. Surely.
Well, Susie sure seemed surprised, and she was even more disappointed when she saw that the women Tyrone slept with weren't as attractive as her. In fact, she went as far as to say they were straight up ugly. Susie thought, if you're going to cheat on me, at least do it with someone hotter. Anyway, this story ended with Susie being worried about what to do with her life now that she's older and has 2 kids.
Did she leave the guy in the end?
She sort of alludes to that being her plan, but we don't know for sure. While I sort of feel bad for her, she knew what sort of person she was dealing with. He had children with multiple women and was in and out of jail. So honestly, I don't know what sort of result she was expecting. And while having children isn't always a deal breaker for guys, I'd always be wary about who the children's father is and what potential drama I could be welcoming into my life. You have to be careful about who you choose to marry and have kids with, because what you're doing is making a lifetime commitment. Katerina thought she'd found the perfect guy to spend the rest of her life with, but it all came crashing down in an instant when she got home early and found another woman half naked in her kitchen. Katerina's 35, and her husband Troy is 36. The couple met through Katerina's friend Sarah in 2017, and they got married in 2020. Sarah had invited Katerina to a happy hour on a Friday afternoon, saying that some of her coworkers were going to join them, which sounded like fun to Katerina, so she went along, not expecting to meet her future husband that day. Troy was one of Sarah's coworkers, and once he'd introduced himself to Katerina, they hit it off right away, and the next day, Sarah called Katerina.
Hey, do you remember Troy from last night?
Yeah, sure. Why?
Well, he wants your number. Do you mind if I give it to him?
Of course not. He was pretty amazing. I'd like to get to know him more. What do you think about him? You've known him for much longer.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I think you guys would make a cute couple.
The following day, Troy called Katerina and asked her out to dinner. Since he offered to take her to her favorite restaurant, Katerina suspected that he and Sarah had spoken at length about her. After their date, Katerina and Troy practically spent every second together, went on a few vacations, and met each other's families. I mean, they fell completely in love. It was the perfect year for Katerina. 18 months into their relationship, Troy planned a trip to Mexico for them, and they'd be going with Sarah and her boyfriend Mike.
This Sarah girl's giving me a suspicious vibe. Or am I just being silly?
I won't lie to you, I had the same feeling while reading this story. Anyway, while they were in Mexico, taking a stroll along the beach, Troy got down on one knee and proposed to Katerina. Immediately, she said yes and started jumping for joy. To say she was over the moon would be an understatement. They had 220 people attend their wedding, and for Katerina, life was feeling like a movie. After tying the knot, they tried to get pregnant for a year, but it didn't quite work out for them. But their marriage was perfect, so they were okay with it. Their life was great. They'd got themselves a brand new home and worked really hard so they could live to the fullest. Every year, they'd go on a few holidays, and in between all that, they'd enjoy weekend getaways. Katerina felt like the luckiest girl in the world as she had a great man by her side who was fully in love with her. Katerina's job had her traveling a handful of times a year, but Troy had no problem with it. They always talked at the end of the workday and before they fell asleep, so I guess from Katerina's viewpoint, she had nothing to worry about. Now, Troy had a birthday coming up, and Katerina had a surprise weekend getaway planned for the two of them. Because she wanted to keep it a secret, she didn't tell Troy that she'd be flying in early. Katerina had a car service drop her home, but when she got back, there was a strange car parked in the driveway. At the time, she really thought nothing of it, thinking that Troy was probably playing golf with a work friend. But to her surprise, when she entered the kitchen, there was a woman standing there wearing nothing but her panties. Katerina was in complete shock for about 10 seconds, but this mysterious girl broke the silence.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry.
Where's Troy?
He's in the shower.
Well, it's time for you to leave.
After that, the girl nodded her head in agreement, went to Katerina's bedroom, grabbed her clothes, and left. As for Katerina, though, she sat on the couch in disbelief, not sure if she wanted to kill somebody or sit there and cry. Once the girl had left, Katerina made her way upstairs, only to see Troy come out of the shower, and obviously he was surprised to see her.
I don't know what's going on, but I know that we're over. I'll be filing for divorce, and there's no chance of saving us.
I am so sorry.
Unlike a lot of people on Reddit who get cheated on, Katerina wasn't messing around. She clearly explained to Troy that no matter what he said, nothing would change, and the fact that he brought another woman into their home was unforgivable. While she didn't want any of it to be true and wished it was all a nightmare, Katerina was done.
As it should be. I wish everyone reacted this way.
I mean, some people are able to survive an episode of cheating, but for a lot of people, it completely wrecks them and can do so for years if they stick with someone who ultimately never changes their ways.
So, what happened afterwards? What about the weekend trip Katerina had planned?
Well, she ended up going with Sarah, who was actually her rock throughout this whole thing, so you were wrong about her.
I was so convinced that she'd be the one to sleep with Troy. Gosh, maybe all these cheating stories have made me jaded, but who was the girl he slept with?
Sarah found out she was a bartender at his golf club, so who knows how long this had been going on for. In any case, the Monday after her getaway weekend with Sarah, Katerina got in touch with a divorce lawyer and met with him later that afternoon. To this day, though, Katerina doesn't know why Troy did what he did, and even talked about how they had a pretty active sex life, so he wouldn't have a reason to look anywhere else. To that, though, sometimes when a guy cheats, it's not because there's something lacking in his marriage, it's just because he wants something different, and there's nothing you can really do about that. If he isn't the type of guy who can control this urge, he may eventually give in to it, especially if he's the kind of guy who's attractive to women and doesn't have to put in a lot of work to get some action. Douglas and his wife Amber have been married for 12 years, and their relationship's seen its share of ups and downs. But right after their wedding, Douglas found a flirty message from Amber's ex-boyfriend. While he thought they could move past this, it turns out this was just the start of the drama their relationship would experience, leaving both Douglas and Amber with muddied hands. So, this guy, Douglas, has been married to his wife Amber for 12 years, and like all relationships, they had their ups and downs. However, the first weekend after they got married, something weird happened when Amber ran into a store to get something, leaving her phone in the car. While she was gone, a message came through, and it was from a guy that Douglas didn't recognize, and the message said, "You're so sexy." I can only imagine how much his head must have been spinning at that point. I mean, he just got married to this woman, so her stepping out on him already was probably the furthest thing from his mind. In any case, when Amber got back to the car, he asked her what it was about, but she acted like she had no idea. Later on, after asking her more questions, Amber finally confessed to Douglas that it was an ex-boyfriend, after which she showed him their whole conversation. Through their chat, there was no mention of her getting married, but she'd asked him questions like,
Why do you miss me? What would happen if you were here with me right now?
Needless to say, Douglas blew a gasket over this, but he soon forgave her and tried to move on.
Wait, just like that? Didn't he think it was a big deal? It looked like she was flirting with the guy, and that's me being nice about it.
Yeah, I know. But if there's one thing that's pretty common in these Reddit cheating stories, it's how people are super quick to brush things under the rug, things that usually come back to bite them in the ass later on. Anyway, fast forward 2 years, and it happened again with a different guy, someone that Amber was working with. The way she got caught this time was because she fell asleep with her phone on her chest, and when Douglas went to put it on the nightstand, he saw a message that said, "Wear a skirt tomorrow." And it was from her male co-worker, Brad. Once again though, Amber denied everything at first, saying to Douglas that it wasn't anything to worry about. Still, she couldn't stop apologizing to Douglas about the text, saying it wouldn't happen again, and that she'd be quitting soon. This may have been too little too late though, because this time around, Douglas was feeling lost, so confided in a female friend.
You don't even have to tell me what happened next. I think we all know.
Yeah, these sorts of things run like clockwork, so it's never really surprising. Anyway, Douglas ended up sleeping with this friend, and it was a lie he kept up for 6 months, but everything came out when a text message was found on his phone. Now, Douglas knew that he was in the wrong, despite what Amber had done in the past, and ever since he cheated on her with his friend, he spent years begging for forgiveness, trying to do any and everything to make Amber happy. They even moved and had a house built so they could start over. It's very rare for a relationship to be the same once someone has cheated, because how you trust each other is just different now. For Douglas and Amber, as the years went by, he caught her multiple times talking with other guys. She'd even sent them nudes, and every time she got caught, she'd deny that anything physical happened, which is something she held over Douglas's head. One day, they were having an argument, and she said,
You're the one who physically cheated, so I haven't done anything as bad as that.
Now me, personally, I don't think I'm quite buying what Amber was trying to sell to Douglas, especially when it came to whatever was going on with her co-worker, Brad. Being so sexual with someone you work with makes it very easy for things to happen, mostly because there's just so much opportunity for things to go down. In any case, Douglas thought that what he did was so much worse than Amber's transgressions, but constantly catching her chatting with these other guys was killing him. Douglas loved the family they made, but was left with a bitter taste in his mouth. You see, while he feels very remorseful about what he did, Amber doesn't seem to give a damn. The last time he caught her messaging with someone, it was her ex-boyfriend, and he caught them because they went out for dinner, And as they were walking to the restaurant with the kids, she was texting like crazy. At which point, Douglas had no choice but to stop and ask her,
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Who are you talking to?
It's just a friend. There's nothing to worry about.
Really? Show me your phone then.
No!
Even though everyone deserves privacy in their relationship, it's always a little odd when someone is adamant on not showing their partner what's on their phone, especially if they have a legitimate concern.
Yeah, and under the circumstances, it definitely makes it seem like she was hiding something from Douglas. Douglas had no intention of letting this slide though, so when they got home, he brought it up again and pleaded with Amber to let him see what was on her phone if she had nothing to hide. Surprisingly, she agreed this time and quickly opened her phone and scrolled through her chat with her ex-boyfriend. And once she got to the end, she was like, "See, there's nothing to worry about." Douglas wasn't about to be fooled by that though, so he took Amber's phone and looked through the messages himself. What he found was that Amber and her ex had been messaging each other for about 6 months, and the conversations were always about how much he misses her, how he wishes she was closer, how she wishes he was closer, and of course, talking about the sex they had in the past. When Douglas showed her this part of the message, her response was, "It's nothing to worry about, we were just talking." But in other messages, Amber's ex was asking for nudes, and her response would be something like, "I'll get you one shortly." Now, while Amber sent nudes to other guys in the past, it doesn't seem like she sent any to her ex. Outside of all this though, something that bothered Douglas was the fact Amber never opened up to him about anything. She was always super quiet, but with the guys she was messaging, she was very, very open.
So, what happened with the ex and the texting? Did he finally kick her to the curb?
Well, they had a fight about it, and Amber agreed to stop chatting with him. And while Douglas wasn't quite sold, he went along with it. And just 1 month later, Amber had got herself a burner phone.
This is ridiculous. Forget Douglas. Why does Amber even want to be in this marriage? It seems like she has no interest in staying loyal to her man.
Beats me. Some people love having this sort of drama in their lives, but it seemed like Douglas finally had enough. He was super pissed and kicked her out, which of course led to Amber going on another one of her apology tours. Things are so toxic between these two that their kids became aware of what's going on, and 2 of them even told Douglas to get a divorce. Douglas, though, well, he still feels guilty for what he did, so the story ends with them both going to therapy. Rather than doing the whole cheating back thing, if it were me, I would have just exited the marriage. I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes the easier way isn't the best way. And if you ask me, this doesn't look like the sort of relationship that can be fixed. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed today's video on coffee and popcorn, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.